This is a new project with Blue Waters. We are planned to start this project about half years ago, but for obvious reasons, the government shut down furlough. We actually started this project about 3 months earlier. From now, from present. I also want to mention the PI, Dr. Pavlis from NGA, and this project is co-sponsored by NASA and the NGA. But because of the reasons, if you were here yesterday, if you heard from the NGA's keynote speech, we don't have enough time to put the NGA and NGA's affiliates to this presentation because of the press release requirements from the NGA. The work has contributions from different people, and I put their names here. I don't want to mention specific contributions throughout the talk for this reason. The takeaway message for our project is that first of all, geomagnetic field and the geomagnetic secular variation is of fundamental importance for both science research and the societal applications. And the decadal secular variation forecast is possible with our current theoretical models and the data, but is extremely expensive in computation. So that's why the Blue Waters is extremely helpful for our project. The goals of the Blue Water projects is trying to find then cost-effective means to carry out the geomagnetic data assimilation. And I will give a little bit more details through this at the later part of this presentation. Now, we do know that the compass is one tool of navigation before the GPS becomes available. But I would like to mention this example as a good explanation why the geomagnetic field is relevant to our daily life very much. This is a news report about 5 years ago that one of the Jersey Airport's runways have to be renamed. And many of you probably have already known that the runway names are given in numbers. And the numbers are actually the local magnetic geomagnetic declination, or in other words, is the angle between the magnetic pole and the true North Pole at the location. So by FAA regulation is if this angle changes more than 5 degrees, then you have to rename it. So this is one example that to demonstrate that the geomagnetic field variation actually affect our lives. You might be trying to point out, where's the pointer? Is that this change occurs almost every half century, and this is a once-a-lifetime event, so why don't you bother? But actually, the situation is much more complex and much more severe. If you look at these magnetic polar positions inferred from the surface magnetic observations, you see that the magnetic pole actually is pretty much stable in the first half of the 20th century, but it begins to shift with accelerated speed in the last 20 years or so. If this trend keeps moving in the future, then we would expect in about 10 to 15 years, another run of the renaming of the airport runways will start again. So this is not a life event. To really forecast or predict geomagnetic secular variation, you have to understand the nature, the science, and the geophysics behind that. I really like this cartoon from the ESA SWARM mission, which is currently the only ongoing satellite mission with the main focus on measuring Earth's magnetic field. So this cartoon tells you two very simple facts. The first of all, at the Earth's surface, the geomagnetic field is very simple, almost like a dipole. The simplicity actually is the key for the navigation purposes, but also it really covers the complexities of this fundamental science, geoscience phenomena. Another thing is the origin of this geomagnetic field actually rests very deep inside the Earth. This is an area we often call the Earth's outer core, or core in a very simple way, that this is where the geomagnetic field is generated. So, if we move from the surface of the Earth, which is at the top, to the core mountain boundary, where the geomagnetic field is generated, the boundary of that, we can see that the magnetic field, which is a very simple dipole at the surface, where the blue means the magnetic field lines gets in, and the orange is the magnetic field lines gets out. Don't really be fooled by this color. This is opposite to the other people use. But this color really shows it is very dipolar at the surface of the Earth. But when we moves into the core mountain boundary, the spatial patterns becomes extremely complicated. In addition to the spatial complexity, it also changes very rapidly over time. So in this plot, if we take away the magnetic dipole components and focusing on the other parts of the field, we can see that in the past 400 years, this patterns changes substantially. In particular, the changes which rest primarily in certain part of the Earth, while it is pretty much stagnant in other part of the Earth, such as Pacific area. So why the geomagnetic field changes so rapidly, and what is the reason behind that? This is a numerical simulation a depiction of the geodynamo processes. On the left is the magnetic field lines coming out of the numerical simulation results. There's a green surface, opaque green surface, is a transparent green surface represents the CMB, core mountain boundary, while the red surface is the solid inner core. And the fluids in between actually is in vigorous convection, chaotic, and this is a snapshot of a streamline of this simulation, which actually interact with the magnetic field and other physical processes to create this, generate this geomagnetic field we observe at the surface. How it is generated? Oh, by the way, this movie is from Blue Water's results. So this is the image of how the geomagnetic field is generated. The orange block is the area where the kinetic energy, which is converted into magnetic energy, is stronger than omega joule dissipation in the area. So this is where the magnetic field is generated, while the blue areas where the dissipation is faster than the kinetic energy, magnetic energy transfer. So the problem is, although we have made great progresses in numerical simulation over the past 15 years to 20 years, we're still far away from interpreting the observations. Basically speaking, none of the models we have today can reproduce the observed geomagnetic field. On the left-hand side is the observed geomagnetic field in 1990 at the core mountain boundary. On the right-hand side is a typical, or is the average image from numerical simulation, truncated at the same spatial resolution as the observation. So they are already very different. The more importantly, there are a lot of more finer structures or part of the state variables that cannot be observed from the surface of the Earth. So if we somehow can force or regulate the part of the numerical solutions from observation and through nonlinear interactions, dynamical processes in the outer core, we can further understand the hidden part of the core. So the way we do that is use the ensemble common filter type of approach for geomagnetic data assimilation. The GEMS we're talking about actually composes of two independent subsystems which are communicated via driver. I don't want to go to the technical details, but what I want to tell you is that the dynamo model, which is a theoretical model, provides forecast, while the EnKF subsystem provides the analysis, which will be used as the initial state for prediction. So, as a first step, we always want to see if we can do the forecast with current models and the data. So we use a very simplified approach in which there's not much computational cost in it. And we did simulation and compare with the observations. On the top, again, is the movie we just saw from observations. The bottom part is the assimilated results. Every 20 years with analysis cycle, every 20 years, and this is the accuracies of the forecast. And you can see that even with such a simple approach, we are able to make predictions. Can we improve that? Can we sort of predict the geomagnetic circuit variation with the desired accuracies for broader applications? And this becomes much more technically, computationally challenging. To give us some very simple sense, we're using a pseudospectral scheme on spherical surface and a finely different scheme in radius. So in the meridional surface, the numerical grids looks like that. So typically, the spatial grid size is controlled by the small parameter, which we can talk if you are more interested in the physics behind that. And the temporal resolution is controlled by another parameter. So for current simulations we have, most of the simulations we have, those two numbers are on the order 10 to minus 6. While for the real Earth's core, this is much smaller. So what does that mean? That if we estimate the computing cost for this kind of simulation, then it's going to be already on petascale, petaflop scale computation with the current values. The black line here is the single geodynamo simulation, dash dot, and the dots, lines represent 10, 100, and 1,000 ensemble sizes. So with the current value of Rossby number 10 to minus 6, we already require 10 petaflop simulation for one forecast runs. So if we really want to approach to the Earth's core, we're talking about astronomical simulations. So now I'm coming to the purpose of the Blue Water projects. We're basically trying to figure out answer two scientific questions. The first one, can we find the optimal ensemble size for the geomagnetic data simulation? And the second one is, can we further reducing this size by create a theoretically available models with a very small ensemble size? Now, in the past 3 months of simulation, we are able to answer the first question. Yes, we can find the optimal ensemble size. So this on the left is the O minus F observation minus forecast errors. And you can see that when we increases ensemble size from 50, which is a blue line here, to 400. And actually, we see that the differences begin to, reduce at a much lower speed from 200 to 400. And this is a result. This is the forecast. This is 10 times of the observation O minus F at the Command boundary, which is extremely small. So in summary, I just put these numbers here again. With the blue waters, we are able to identify the optimal ensemble sizes about this value, which is a 1 order of magnitude reduction in computational cost. So if we can further get in a hybrid covariances analysis, then we probably can reduce the computational cost from from this red line to this dashed line. This is another order of magnitude reduction for geomagnetic data assimilation that really makes this work possible. Thank you very much.